Welcome to the Fear the Wavecast pregame show. This is Kelly Camardo with Jake Weinstock, Nick Anderson, the captain, and Jimmy Ordino. Fellas, first live show that we've ever done here. So, Jake, watch your mouth. We're looking forward to definitely the biggest game of the year coming up on Black Friday. Blackout uniforms, blackout game. Got a good crowd coming. Nick, obviously you played in a huge game last year, same day, ABC, same type of environment, but this time we get to play at home.
Most definitely. It's a blessing. I think it's one of the things that you can't take for granted. Last year around this time, we were playing we knew that Navy had beaten UCF around this time, and so it was like we didn't know.
Only because you spoke it into existence.
Yeah, I felt it, but in reality, we didn't know that we would get the opportunity to come back and play the conference championship on our home turf. And so we went up there to Cincinnati. It's like, okay, let's just play for the conference championship and cross our fingers for Navy to handle their business. But the game prior was our senior night. We played SMU, and that was just a message to the team: go out here and play like it's your last, because next week's not promised. And I feel like that's the same message for the team this week. You know, next week isn't promised. When you go and you look at the AAC championship game and you look at the opponent who's playing, it says to be determined. It hasn't been set in stone. And I just feel like the mindset of the team needs to be go out here and treat this like your championship. You know, go out here and ball out one last time for the seniors. And, you know, God's going to, let the chips fall where they may. You handle your business, you'll be playing again next week. But don't really emphasize, okay, we got to just make the championship next week, and that's the main focus. No, the main focus is going to 1-0. You go 1-0, you'll be there next week. And so the main thing is just going out here one last time for the seniors, on Black Friday, ABC, just taking it all in and going 1-0 one more time to get the opportunity to do it next week.
And Jimmy, you had your own senior day, a while ago, before Nick was born, probably, or close to that. Nick, when were you born?
I was born in 2000.
Before Nick was born. Talk about the emotions that run through, your mind and how hard it is to stay focused on the task at hand when there's so much outside pressure. You're feeling so much internal pressure. What is the process like for the guys that are going through this right now?
Yeah, I think in my team, our senior day was the Louisiana Tech game to end the 98 season, and there was so much else going on to the sort of culmination of everything we did for 4 years. Because unlike Nick knows exactly like what this feels like. In my first 2 years, I mean, you can hear a pin drop in the Superdome. Still wasn't great attendance, but junior year we went 7-4, and like that 12-0 season, like it built and built and built. And then that Louisiana Tech game, Thanksgiving week, was Thanksgiving night, was just incredible. I mean, it was. You hear stories now of people waiting 45 minutes to get in because they didn't have enough ticket lanes open, and the lower two bowls of the Superdome were filled. And I mean, you get your name called for the senior night, like coming out to that, like after everything you had been through, everything the support you didn't have to all of a sudden have all the support and to hear the roar and all that's crazy. But I think my teammates and I think all of us, you end up compartmentalizing sort of the ceremony part. Like everything's the same, preparation wise, et cetera. And then, like, all right, seniors, y'all got to come through this. It's like a 20-minute pause. You go do this little thing and then it's back at it. It's time to play ball. So, but it was really special in our case, much like Nick's with SMU. Like, it was just really special to be part of something like that, to kind of put a stamp on a long career.
Yeah. And Jake, obviously, you've been coming to games forever. You made a statement before we started recording that, this isn't 2013 anymore. And we've got a big crowd coming. As somebody who has followed the program for so long, seeing this momentum build up, how important is it for people to come watch this game, support the team, and continue this momentum into the future, knowing now, we've got a new AD coming in. We've got, we're going to have a new quarterback next year. We've got a lot of things that are going to change, yet we've got to still keep this momentum going.
We have to keep it going. And, to kind of echo what Nick tweeted out after the Tulsa game, there are 133 FBS programs. Only 7 of them have won more consecutive games, on an active streak right now than Tulane has against unranked opponents. And so, to speak to what Nick was saying, close win against Tulsa, close win against Rice, close win against ECU. I just really hope people appreciate greatness and appreciate winning 22 of your last 25 games. Again, 133 teams in the country. This is the entire list of programs that have won more games than the Tulane University Green Wave since September 1st last year. Georgia and Michigan. That's it. That's the list that have more than 22 wins. So it's really important to be dialed in, because I think if you look across, the G5, if you look at the 10-year history of the American Athletic Conference, a lot of teams, a lot of programs have had that moment where they've had that one or two tremendous seasons, right? I mean, Houston famously was almost unbeatable in 2015 and 2016 under Tom Herman. 2017, UCF, Scott Frost had that program rolling. I think it was 2019, Memphis got the Group of 5 bid and went to the Cotton Bowl. They didn't win because they didn't have you, but they made it. And, it's a rare program that can sustain that level of play. And we are right on the cusp of that, with what Friday represents, what maybe comes thereafter, and then carrying that over into 2024, 2025 and beyond, just with the institutional commitment that is here, that wasn't here in 2013, that wasn't here in 1998, Jimmy, even when y'all were so tremendous that year. And so I just hope everyone understands and appreciates what we're seeing and what it takes to continue this year after year into the future. And that starts with showing up on Friday and making time in your holiday plans.
Let's talk about Friday. Nick, obviously we have a big challenge with Frank Harris. Not getting to play against him. UTSA wasn't in the conference last year, but watching him on TV and preparing for this game, what do you see from Frank Harris? What challenges does he pose to the defense? And how do you play somebody like that that's capable of throwing for 400 or 500 yards, but also capable of running for 150?
There's a guy down in Central Florida named John Plumlee, and he was a player to play against last year. So I can only imagine being in that same situation, because I've been in that situation. But Frank Harris is a very polished quarterback. He's very experienced. He's not one of those quarterbacks that just completely depends on his legs, but he also has a talented arm. He has a great receiving core. He's been in that system for a while. And so he's going to be what we would say a veteran quarterback to come up against this week. But I feel like the defense just got to do what they did last week. Just affect him, get him, rattled, make him have to make perfect decisions, because can't nobody play a perfect game, but make him try to attest to that, try to do that. And that's when mistakes are going to happen. And that's when you see Lance Robinson getting another interception. And when you see J-Bo getting tried and him getting an interception, and Cam and DJ and those guys running it up. But it all starts with the guys up front really getting back there and rattling him. And just handling their business. It's not, some magical thing that they can do this week to just, change up their scheme. They just got to go back to their fundamentals, in which they did last week. And I feel like they're going to have a great time on Friday.
Well, I'm going to test you on that a little bit, because last year when we played John Rice Plumlee the first time versus the second time, we did play him differently. We schemed it up. Zeus played a lot in that second game.
Right.
We played a lot more 3 linebackers. So what did we change from the first game to the second game last year, understanding this is a totally different defense, totally different situation, totally different opponent? What are the little adjustments that we made to slow him down?
We went back to what we did as a defense. I feel like the first time we played UCF, they had a lot of weapons, and Gus Malzahn did a great job of utilizing all the weapons, and we tried to have an answer to every weapon. It would be number 0 getting the game. We make checks for him. John Rice Plumlee motioning it back to one side. We're trying to make a check to that. Everything that they aligned in, we tried to have an answer for it. And that led to guys playing slower, not really executing, guys having to think. Versus the rest of our games, we just reacted, went out there, ran our defense, and reacted. And the championship game, it was like, okay, we're going to run our defense. We're going to make them stop it. The only adjustment we're going to do is, Nick, you're going to cover the running back the whole game. Dorian going to spot a quarterback. And that's what we did. And we went out there and just played our type of ball. It wasn't really that much thinking to go to it. And we also had the chip on our shoulder from them beating us the first time. But it just went back to the basics. Like, what are we best at? Let's do what we're best at, and not really change up our scheme just because they do a little something that we haven't seen. I just feel like that really would be the key thing this week. Really, the coaches putting guys in position to do what they're best at, do what they've been doing all year, which is being the aggressive defense, attacking the quarterback, making teams have to get in third and long positions, second and long positions, fighting the chain battle, and also just playing. One thing that I feel like hasn't been talked about enough, the great special teams battles. Special teams has been balling this year, and I feel like it goes unseen with the, you got Michael Pratt breaking records on one side, you got the defense breaking and doing their thing on the other side that, guys don't really see that, for us to have been in so many close games, it falls to the hidden yardage and things like that in the special teams battle. So just doing the same thing, even in that emphasis of, taking care of possessions, making sure that guys are flying down on kickoff, making sure that we're fielding all fieldable punts. And also, when we get the opportunity, like Dante said, making those explosive returns that really change the momentum of the game. And I just feel like those guys come out and just do what they did last week and really play Tulane football and not really worry about the hype that, surrounds the other opponent that will be successful Friday.
Jimmy, talking about what we do well, one of the things that we need to do to play our version of offense is to keep Michael clean. And we have a pretty big, threat on the other side of the ball with UTSA's starting defensive end, who I think leads the nation in tackles for loss and pressures. How do we keep Michael clean? What are some of the things you expect to see on offense? And do you envision us doing anything differently in order to protect him?
I think we're going to be aware where he is. To the extent they move him around, we'll be aware of it. I think, we saw something like this last year at Cincinnati. Ivan Pace came in with 13 sacks or so into that game and was the focal point of their defense. They moved him around a lot. He's an off-ball guy for Minnesota now, but he was an A-gap blitzer. He was an edge rusher. They made you be aware of him, and I thought we did a good job of that, whether it required a chip, whether it required run back staying in protection, whatever it was. We had a plan to limit him from changing the game, wrecking the game. And UTSA's got a guy that can change the game. He can wreck the game. But, what that result of what we saw last year against Cincinnati, we got a heavy dose of the run game. Kind of hostile environment. You really controlled it with the run game. I think, you can see a lot of that here. Make him defend the run. Effective pass rushers are a lot less effective when they have to be responsible for the run. But then it's the play action. When we were successful and we did have huge passing moments in that game. You think about the Deuce reception. When they finally took a lead, got it right back. 3 throws down the field. Jake likes to talk about, but that was the moment was where the complete game. When it was time for the passing game to make plays, we made. But I would expect to see that. I think if we had our way with it, we would see a 65-35 run pass split, 60-40, something like that. But it's the success is going to dictate that. I don't see us going in there and running it. If it's 1st and 10, we're getting 2 yards a bunch of time, and we're going to mix it up. But the balance, probably trending to the run a little bit and being aware where he is and protecting for that is going to be all part of what we do to be successful in offense.
So, Jake, turning to UTSA, where are they weak?
That's a tough one because they're strong most places, right? Offensively, I think you can make a credible argument that UTSA has the best or the second best offense that we've seen this season, right? They're 37th in points per play, 26th in yards per game, 21st in scoring, 34th in the nation in punts per offensive score. Frank Harris is in his 7th year with the program. So to me, where they're weak are on offense. They don't run, they don't run the ball as effectively as you would expect, given how impactful and explosive their RPO game is. Given how well Harris has run the ball as a design running option over the last month or so, as he's continued to get healthy and progress from that injury that cost him a couple games back in September when they went 0-2. That's where I think, the opportunity lies to get them behind the sticks, create pressure up front, and put them in a situation where their RPO game isn't necessarily credible. And, this is an offense. It's a team like UTSA that, watching them, I see how people get very confused. Casual fans get very, very confused at the difference between a post-snap RPO and play action because they lean so hard into that RPO game. He's so good at making the right decision and then making an accurate throw behind it. But then when you walk another safety down into the box, when you put a third linebacker in the game and try to make those alignment adjustments within the first 10 yards beyond the line of scrimmage to take away some of those lanes, and you're forced to play single high or one-on-ones across it, they are as aggressive as anyone in the country at attacking those matchups. He's already got 20 completions in 9 starts of throws, 20-plus yards down the field. So, they are very, very aggressive about targeting Josh Cephas down the field. He is the engine that makes the passing game go. But, we say it every week. Every casual football fan understands that quarterbacks are worse under pressure than when they're kept clean. And like a lot of guys we've played this season, you look at Harris's splits and they're really no different against the blitz versus when you only send 3 or 4 rushers. But when he is pressured, and you don't even have to get him on the ground, when he is pressured, his completion percentage plummets to 38%, right? Versus 72 when clean. And then when you adjust it and filter out drops, it's a lot closer to 80. So he's a very difficult guy to get on the ground. I'd be surprised if we could get him down 5 times like we did Richardson last week. Opponents are only converting 14% of their pressures into sacks, but when pressured, a lot of the accuracy goes away. When they're in an obvious down and distance, a lot of the effectiveness goes away. But if you let them attack you in the secondary with air in the coverage, if you do not tackle well, all you have to do is look at a highlight reel from the USF game to tell you how that's going to go. So stopping the running game early, taking the RPOs away, that's going to be very, very critical. And then flipping over to the other side of the ball, where are they weak? Second opponent in a row where their relative strength on defense is stopping the run. This is one of the, I'd say, statistically top 30, 35 run defenses in the country. But if there is a vulnerability to the defense, it's through the air. And so we're going to have to make plays, especially on early downs through the passing game. But, we talk about how secondary pass coverage is a weak link system, right? It doesn't matter if 5 guys all cover their men perfectly. One guy falls down or busts. It's a 60-yard touchdown, right? This is a secondary that does not have a ton of weak links. And so, ideally, when you're going into play an opponent where you're not going to necessarily be able to rely on the running game for, just almost a guaranteed 4, 5, 6 minimum on every carry, you'd like to have that option in the secondary. Like, we're going to find him, we're going to target him, we're going to get Chris Brazzell isolated on him, and we're just going to let him eat. That's going to be a little bit tougher this week than perhaps it was last week. So we're going to have to be really efficient at ourselves, not getting behind the sticks, but throwing on early downs such that, when it is time to run the ball, when it is time to try to convert those third downs to the extent we see them, we're in a position where we can credibly do either one.
Well, I think that kind of summarizes, what we expect to see out here. Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot first. What do you think the score is going to be? What do you think the difference is going to be on Friday?
First and foremost, you got to take into the consideration that the guys are well aware of the realities at hand. Only 10 teams will get the opportunity to play next week for a conference championship. And that's something that you can't take for granted. Like he said, it's 133 teams that start off every year saying that, their goal is to reach a conference championship, play in the conference championship. And now Tulane football is at that door for the second time in a row. So I just feel like the guys are going to play with a major chip on their shoulder, knowing that, not only do they have a legacy that's been built, but they have a legacy that they have to protect and are in the situation where they're on their home field to do so. It's Black Friday, all black uniforms, which only come out once a year. So I got the Wave winning. Let's go 35-28.
Okay, Jake.
This is a UTSA team that's playing with all the confidence in the world, and they're playing for those exact same things, right? They know that if they win, they get to play next weekend. They've rattled off 7 in a row, all conference games. They've scored at least 34 points in each and every one of those. victories, but I'm with Nick. I'm going to say we're going to keep them below that average, and we see some more of that explosiveness from the Tulane passing game that we saw last week. I'm going to go 31-28 Tulane.
Okay, Jimmy.
Look, a couple thoughts on it is to be successful. The way we're going to do at least two things. And one is you're going to keep him in the pocket. Frank Harris is a good enough passer to beat you from the pocket. He is a guy who will kill you if he gets out of the pocket without a spy, without rush lane integrity. If he gets loose, he beats you through the air or on the ground. Either way, you got to absolutely keep him in the pocket, make him a pocket passer, see if you can beat him, make him earn it up and down the field from there. So that's going to be, to me, the most important part of this game. Because look, we're ambidextrous offensively. Like whatever is working, we can make work. We were able to do a lot of things. But you cannot let him become John Rice Plumlee from last year, and UCF1. I mean, that's hard to win. The other thing, though, is I think we've seen us, their tempo team. We're going to look to slow it down, and for us to be successful, we're going to make them play our pace, which can make tempo teams uncomfortable. I remember we were the tempo team. We were the first tempo team in '98. We played Army or whatever, and like all of a sudden you're down to 8 or 9 possessions in a game instead of 13. Like it creates some pressure on you, and we're going to want that advantage. We're going to want that tactical advantage. But I think a winning wave score is going to look like 27-24, something like that. It's going to be a tight one. It's going to be tough. But that's where I have us coming out on top on Friday.
I agree with you. I think that all of the close games that we played this year, all the low-scoring games and all of the complaining about not blowing teams out is actually going to come full circle here. And it's going to be the reason why we win this game is because we've been in so many close games. We've won these limited possession games. We're going to purposely limit possessions, like you said. We're going to force them to play our tempo, 24-20 Tulane in a dogfight. It's going to be ugly. Not going to look pretty, but it's going to be a W nonetheless. And we'll be back after that game to wrap it up and hopefully wrap up a conference championship berth, regular season conference championship. And we will post our show hopefully Friday night after a W. Go to ftwcollective.com and make a donation to the Fear the Wave Collective so we can keep providing NIL opportunities for our student athletes. Fellas, thanks again, as usual. Nick, appreciate you being here.
No problem. Thank y'all for having me.
Roll Wave.
Roll Wave.
Roll Wave.